Welcome to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and today we're talking about the phenomenon of cancel culture and what it means for businesses. Today I'll be interviewing two women who you may not think the cancel crowd would come for, the owners of a gluten-free vegan bake shop in the Ontario suburbs. Kelly Childs and Erin Weatherby are female business owners who care about a variety of causes, from animal welfare to LGBTQ rights and the environment. They started their vegan and gluten-free bake shop in 2012 to wide acclaim, and in 2014 signed a deal for a cookbook with over 100 plant-based recipes. The book did so well, they signed a contract for a follow-up in 2017. That's when things went off the rails. Some social media slip-ups, if you can even call them that, led to an online mob swarming the bakery on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. The slip-ups included things like posting a Pride cupcake during Pride Week and stating that the profits would be donated to LGBTQ organizations internationally, which I'm not really sure why, but some people objected to. And then posting about Black Lives Matter on what was called Blackout Tuesday on Instagram, but making the apparent faux pas of following up that post with an ad for coconut cupcakes, something I'm informed is bad. The mob came for Erin and Kelly, and they lost their follow-up book contract. They're now suing their publisher for breach of contract. Now here are Erin and Kelly to talk about what exactly went down and why. So Erin, you guys didn't have to send all of these cupcakes. The guys in my production team are drooling right now. But I mean, a lot of people are mad at you, but how can you be mad at someone who makes this? It's insane. It's a donut on top of a cupcake. I'm pretty excited for the commercial breaks.
Awesome.
But you know, people are mad. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, so I guess where do we begin, right? And, you know, this whole time was just a very dark time for us. And talking about it, it really brings it all up for us again. And so it all started on June 2nd. In response to the death of George Floyd, we posted an MLK quote with our sincere opposition to racism of any kind and pledged to donate $1,000 to the Loveland Foundation, which is an organization that helps women of color with mental health and gives them access to affordable therapy. So about 1 hour after posting it, we received about 50 comments with trolls online saying, "You're being performative. You're white privilege. How dare you do this?" And then it started, you know, you're deleting comments. Stop silencing people of color. You're racist. You're homophobic. You need to be donating more money than that. And it went on and on. We felt that the tone was getting very aggressive and very hate-filled. So we decided to turn the comments off or disable the comments. We didn't delete any comments. We just turned them off. And the same day we posted the Black Square as part of hashtag Blackout Tuesday, again in solidarity with the Black community, and kept the comments off on that post as well. The next day, after not sleeping that entire night because of the stress and the anxiety and the fear we felt.
It was bad.
Yeah. We posted an apology for turning the comments off on our page with a post on Instagram saying that, you know, we would do better and that our intention was never to silence Black voices. We watched the comments come in on this post, and the first, 4 to 5 of them were positive and thankful. And then the next comments said, "Oh boy, they're deleting comments again," which was not true at all. So in that moment, we knew that that ship had sailed. And by the morning, there were about 500 comments on the post, all based on lies. So 48 hours later, we posted a video of a coconut cupcake that we sold at the bake shop, trying to get back to our normal business. And keep in mind that we had just reopened after being closed for 6 weeks due to COVID. So things were really tight and, we were stressed as business owners, not realizing that the Blackout Tuesday movement was a week-long blackout. And, we had never said that we were muting ourselves for that entire week. We said it was just going to be for that day. So people, again, started commenting and saying, how dare we post regular content, even though all the other bakeries and food establishments were kind of getting back to their business. So at this point, we had about 1,000 comments on this post. negative comments were still coming in, and the topic was turning very negative and very false, talking about sexuality of our husbands and using extreme profanity. And at this point, local media articles came on as well, too.
Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're talking about cancel culture and cupcakes. So, Kelly, I want to follow up with you. Why do you think your business was targeted this way? Because it seems completely bizarre.
It is bizarre. And, to be honest, we're still, even to this day, we're not really sure. For us, though, it kind of goes like this in our minds, that we know that we're a very busy business. We're very successful. We're female owned, and we literally have like tens of thousands of followers. So we believe that we were specifically targeted because then other people who targeted us were able to amplify their voices. And that to us makes a lot of sense. So, we just try to do our best to emulate that goodness and kindness and live with that kind of grace. But we think that we were targeted too because competitors in our industry who are jealous of our success and don't like that our vegan brand is very polished and approachable makes people a little uncomfortable.
So, Erin, what has been the impact on your business of this social media fallout? I mean, I know you lost a really valuable book contract. What else has happened?
Yes. So we were removed from BuzzFeed. We had a world ranking on BuzzFeed. We were ranked number 3 in the world of cupcake shops to visit before you die. That ranking was removed. We were supposed to be featured in Forbes magazine, and that article got pulled. And obviously, from a financial standpoint, it deeply affected our business as well too, and made our staff on edge. And it just wasn't. It was a very negative, heavy time for us.
So, Kelly, can you tell me about the book deal and why you decided to bring a lawsuit against your publisher for canceling it?
Well, our book deal was, pretty straightforward. 2014, we signed a contract with Penguin Random House, and the book was launched in 2016. Within 18 days, it was a national bestseller. So it was selling well. It was just, it was just a beautiful win-win. Penguin Random House always loved us, and then Made with Love was such a hit that we signed a second deal 2017 for a conscious living book that was going to be more lifestyle and recipe focused on how we live and eat every single day. And this book was going to be published in this year, 2021. Penguin Random House decided to jump on the bandwagon, however, and canceled both of our book contracts without having a conversation with us, and claimed that we displayed prejudice against Black people. And we reached out to them multiple times to try to have a conversation, and they ignored our requests after having a relationship with them for the better part of 8 years. So it was very, very disappointing.
I mean, contracts are designed to govern these things. So I'll be really interested to see how your claim progresses. But I want to ask you, what is your advice for other people? How do businesses protect themselves against the type of thing you've experienced, Erin?
It's definitely a very challenging thing. And I think what we've learned is just to stay so true to yourself and to your values, and to not bow to these trolls on the internet, because they're never going to be satisfied. No matter what you do, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's really something that I think we learned.
I think it's just to hold on to your power. Your power comes from within. Having that self-love and that confidence, and just knowing that you are an incredible human being, and not give it away to the outside forces that can be very harshly judging, so it's very unforgiving at times. So that would be it.
So what message do you want to have for people in the community about what your business stands for? What do you want to say about what Kelly's is about?
I think we've always said that Kelly stands for inclusivity, it stands for love, it stands for connection, for kindness, and just honoring everyone for who they are as a human being. And that's always who we've been.
Very well said.
So I just want to get back to the reaction when this first started happening. What was your initial reaction when this started? We've got about 1 minute. I'm really interested in how you initially responded.
I'm going to say total disbelief.
Yeah.
that we were just completely sickened. It was just so, it was just like we were transported off to another planet, and we were witnessing, the collapse of our business in literal minutes, and for something that was just so misguided and misunderstood and based on, as Erin said earlier, falsified words. It wasn't true. And that's what was hurting us so much, because we absolutely love humanity. We love humans. We're the cheerleaders for the little guy. This is what we do. And it was very beyond disappointing. I think we didn't even eat for 2 weeks. We didn't sleep, we didn't eat. It was very difficult.
I can imagine it being incredibly upsetting. I wish you both the best, and thank you so much for all the treats.
Thank you so much for having us.
Welcome back to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and we're talking about cancel culture and the story of a suburban Ontario vegan bakery that was effectively canceled by an online mob. We're joined now by two people who are experts on the subject of so-called cancel culture, Professor Bruce Pardy from Queen's Law and Dr. Glynis Lieb, Executive Director of the Institute for Sexual Minority Studies and Services at the University of Alberta. Thank you both for joining me so much. Bruce, I'd like to start with you. Personally, I don't like the term cancel culture. I think it's really imprecise, and it's used for all kinds of scenarios. Demanding a politician resign for corruption or inappropriateness isn't cancel culture, but it's been called that. So when we talk about canceling someone, this notion, what are we really talking about?
Well, you're really talking about the return of the witch hunt. It's a weaponization of social justice ideology, if you like. It's the demonstration of the intolerance of the tolerant, if you like. And as we saw with the case of Erin and Kelly, they do often go after their own. They go after people that on the surface you wouldn't think have done anything to offend the tolerant. But the nature of the mob is such that they're willing to go after people for the slightest misstep in terms of their language or their symbolism or their performance. And so you get this kind of situation coming up now pretty frequently with people who think they're on the right side and turn out to have offended somebody.
So, Dr. Lieb, how would you define this phenomenon, cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, and do you see problems with it?
I agree with you in the sense that I'm very hesitant to use that term. Also, I don't believe it's a new phenomenon. What's new is who is being called out and how, right? And that too. So, people have been getting canceled for eons, but it used to be that I would get canceled for calling my boss out for sexually harassing me. Now he might get canceled for sexually harassing me, maybe. So there's been some changes in who, and I think we're seeing people that have historically had a lot of voice and not been held accountable, get held accountable. And are people right to hold them accountable all the time? Probably not. But do those of us, and I'll put myself in there, as an educated white person in this country, do those of us who've historically had more voice and gone unchecked need to do some reckoning? Yes, we do. We absolutely do. And now what's happened is that people who haven't been given voice before now have it through social media, through an appetite within media to talk about these subjects based on the social movements of the last year or so. So this isn't new at all. It's just who's being called out.
And Professor Pardy, I'm interested in this notion that Dr. Lieb brought up of accountability. What's the difference between cancel culture and accountability culture? When is it cancellation? And when is it just, you did something bad and you should face consequences for that?
Yeah, you see this phrase coming up, right? So, sometimes there are arguments on social media, for example, about freedom of expression and such, and the so-called cancel culture crowd will say things like, well, yeah, you have freedom of expression, but you don't have freedom from consequences. And what they're saying is the consequences are coming for you. We're going to mob you, And we're not the government, so we're not censoring you, because that's not what censorship means. We're just going to hold you to account. But what they mean by hold you to account is that they're essentially going to be the mob vigilante, the group that says, we don't approve of you or your political views, so we're going to make sure that your commercial or your professional or your personal fortunes are destroyed for that reason.
And same question for you, Dr. Lieb. What is the difference between cancel and accountability culture?
So I agree in the sense that, removing somebody from their positions and that, based on or no longer listening to them or allowing them to perform in that is cancellation. I don't think sometimes there's accountability with that. Right? Sometimes people, as we discussed earlier, sometimes people have done things that are questionable and are wrong, right? Holding people accountable, though, involves giving people information, giving them a chance to respond, to apologize, to correct their ways, right?
We're gonna just take a commercial break, and then we will dig back into these questions. Thank you. Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're talking about how cancel culture came for an Ontario bakery. We're joined now by John Kay, who's a Canadian lawyer and journalist. John, I want to ask you a question about cancel culture and bad faith. I think sometimes when this happens, there's a sense that the people engaged in the sort of canceling behavior know that the person that they're coming for had different intentions than they're being sort of construed as. Can you talk about that issue, this bad faith versus giving a charitable interpretation to people's conduct?
Sure, and this goes to the distinction between accountability and cancel culture, which, as I understand, you were speaking about earlier. In regard to accountability, I think there's a metaphor to the legal concept of restitution, where if you commit a tort, you might have to pay the person back, but there's a good faith attempt to see what actual kind of damage you did. With cancel culture, that's not the case, because what typically is happening is people are acting in bad faith, and they are leveraging the perception, and often it's a very tenuous perception, that somebody has done something horrible. Often it's just a completely abstract indiscretion, like you used the wrong word, or you failed to use the right hashtag, or things like that. So the analogy with any kind of legal restitution, that just completely breaks down. And people are acting in bad faith because in many cases they're not actually aggrieved. They are seizing on the impression that other people are aggrieved as a means to demonstrate their power, as a means to compel behavior, to demonstrate their own power as a mob leader, and to create a sort of public demonstration that certain kinds of ideology or certain beliefs or certain kinds of behavior or even certain words, that this is what happens if you behave like this. That's often why these mobs are such a problem in small, tightly bound subcultures in arts or activism or academia, because those are places where small groups of gatekeepers can dictate the acceptable forms of the acceptable dogmas, the acceptable language, the acceptable belief systems. And once you can get a mob going in these kind of small subcultures, then you can eliminate dissenters. You can make sure that nobody says anything heterodox, because they're going to get mobbed. But again, it's not about accountability, which would presume that you actually did something wrong. It's about leveraging the possible impression that other people might think you did something wrong. So it's a bad faith exercise. I think that's what most people mean by cancel culture.
Dr. Lieb, I'm really interested in this notion John just mentioned of the sort of in-group cancellation. Do you think cancellation is something that happens more in these small in-groups versus, the other side coming for you? Do you have any perspective on that?
That's a very interesting point. And I think that there's validity in the sense that we certainly know, and we know from from research that has looked at this, that the perceptions that this phenomenon is new in that too, that that often people who are calling folks out are people who see themselves as well-meaning allies or voices for people who are oppressed. Quite often the people who are, ostensibly oppressed get very little voice in the call out as well, right? And that's a really important thing to note. What are my motives for speaking up? What are my motives for calling somebody out? And I think we absolutely have to be very careful. There is a danger to that.
Dr. Party, 5 seconds, number one piece of advice if the mob is coming for you.
Number one, never apologize. Never apologize, because it encourages them. You can't satisfy a mob.
That's all the time we have. Thank you all so much for joining me. We've heard today about the real emotional and financial consequences faced by small, well-intentioned businesses that don't live up to the ever-shifting standards of purity and perfection. Every one of us has made mistakes in our lives. Should those mistakes mean we lose our jobs, our businesses, our reputations? Certainly, people are responsible for their actions. But in the online era, it's all too easy to jump on a mistake, large or small, blow it out of proportion, and intentionally misinterpret someone's meanings in order to get likes and retweets. When do we owe each other the benefit of the doubt? And when should we demand accountability? You be the judge. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and remember, a freer Canada starts with you.